latest rant. This is for the subscribers at wearesc.com on our members board there, and just kind of how covering recruiting has changed over the years. I started with WeAreSC before moving on to Scout.com and then 247 and now ultimately On3 about 21 years ago. And a lot of these websites that are now really large and have been around probably since most people that are subscribers, they've been around since the late 90s. And the Pete Carroll era was huge in the growth and the interest level in these sites. It was just kind of like a perfect combination. For starters, there was no Facebook. There were no communities, no Reddit. There were no places to go to form a community to talk about USC with anybody else, unless you were just going to call your buddy, meet up at a local sports bar or whatever it might be. So WeAreSC and the other sites that got started at Rivals and Scout.com at the time. I think actually we were with Scout.com, come to think of it. So there was Scout.com and Rivals. Those were the two main networks back in the day. And, we reported offers. We reported every visit. We reported how the visit went. We reported which schools were leading for these guys. There was only a select few of us that were doing this. There weren't like 500 different people on YouTube with a YouTube channel. There wasn't Instagram, with 400,000 people looking for likes on Instagram and social media and all that kind of stuff. And that's all fun and everything. And it's great. I mean, we have a young guy that's handling our Instagram account, and he's crushing it, really. And so these guys are there's a lot of people in that category where they're just really interested in the sports team, whether it's high school, college, or professional. And they put out a lot of content. A lot of these guys are very talented at their photo edits and their video edits and whatnot. But back in the day, old people like me like to say that all the time, we reported everything. So, everybody came to us to get every little nugget that you could possibly get. So the websites during the Pete Carroll era, because recruiting was bananas. People that were around during the Pete Carroll era, will remember that. Especially when Pete Carroll was going out on the road, when head coaches were allowed to do spring visits to the high schools. I mean, even at the Stanford Nike camps that they had back, 15 years ago, college coaches were allowed to go out to those. So not all of them, but the Stanford Nike camp. I forget what the circumstances were involved to where they could do it, but they did it. One year it was kind of hilarious up at Stanford. I don't recall. It was Matt Meyer. Matt Meyer was at the Stanford Nike camp. USC came up, and this will no longer be considered hopefully a recruiting violation. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut on this one. But what was really bizarre was that you had Matt Meyer and Pat Rule 10 yards apart, maybe, talking on cell phones. I mean, because they couldn't actually talk face to face. I mean, the NCAA rules are just so idiotic. It's just, don't get me started on that. But anyway, back to the websites. So we would have these chat rooms where we would have thousands of people that were just couldn't wait to get in there and get our nightly, as we're getting close to the signing day, because signing day was a national holiday for some people. You had one. It was February. That's it. First Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever the heck it was. I'm sure a lot of that has stayed the same. But so we were able to grow, and the Pete Carroll era kind of festered all of that. And I was alluding to Pete Carroll when he went out on the road. There were people that were so talented finding out stuff and researching stuff that they were able to find the tag for the Fletcher Jones private jet that Pete Carroll flew around, and they could track that thing. They find out where he was going. It's like they would come here, Scott, Pete Carroll just landed somewhere like at the border of Texas and Oklahoma. Who was he seeing? It was Michael Morgan. I forget exactly what town he was from, but a lot of you guys that are going to be listening to this have no idea who Michael Morgan was. But so how things have evolved since then, they've been far more challenging because there's now a lot of people that are handling recruiting. On top of that, the kids don't need us. The kids don't need us to report offers. The kids don't really need us to report anything except trying to be objective with how we're reporting things that are going on with their play, and we're responsible for the rankings. We can help as far as marketing them and all that good stuff. But as far as reporting stuff, we're just not really needed like we used to be. And there are, again, you go out to 7-on-7 events. Back in the day, it was us. It was Rivals and Scout. Maybe a couple other people. At games, a few of the local newspapers and whatnot. But now you have a full sideline. You have people that really have no affiliation whatsoever, except they have a social media page. So at times that gets kind of irritating to me because I'll spend $1,500 to go to an event. And you have all these photographers that are running out on the field, following these guys, trying to get the killer shot and the content and all that kind of stuff. And all they do for me is they're just getting in my way. I might want to get that same shot that, Joey, 17-year-old kid who's really into doing this stuff, but he doesn't really know that there's kind of an etiquette when you go to these events. So that's actually been kind of rectified a little bit with some of these people. They're making it harder and harder to get on the sidelines to a lot of these events. But 7-on-7 is just awful. But so what I've done over the years is it especially started to do this hard when I got fired from 247, and I was pretty much convinced I was no longer going to work in this industry. I was going to go to law school, get my law degree, and start practicing law. And I ended up working for free for the USC rival site. I think from probably like June until just past signing day or whatnot, and I decided to start my own site. So you go from having a network, people shooting photos for you, people helping you out with information. There's a lot of foundation to being a part of a network. There's a lot of value. At the same time, there's a lot. I got a lot of value out of being on my own. I traveled. I went everywhere. I over-traveled. So I went places where I could get my own photos, get my own video, develop the relationships, which is still, in my opinion, the most important aspect of doing a really good job of covering recruiting. It's not just relationships with the kids. It's also, it involves seeing where they're from, meeting the people that are a part of their lives, whether it's the people from the high school, their friends, their family, uncles, whatever it might be, and just kind of get an idea of who these guys are. But also get to know the trainers and the position coaches that, there were a lot of guys that I met in Texas and Georgia, specifically, Nevada, Arizona. And so it's still kind of, I think the people that stand out in my business are the people that get out and the people that have developed relationships. People that see these guys that USC, in my case, is recruiting, see them in person. So the other part that I think is vital into separating yourself is, like for me, I know it's impossible to achieve this, but it irritates me when I'm not breaking every single piece of news. Like, it just bothers me. Not as much as it used to, but we want to be so on top of what we're doing with our coverage at We Are SC, and me personally, that I always the sense of urgency with me is so strong that I am constantly feeling like I'm in a hurry. So the end result of that, if somebody comes onto our site and they ask about a specific player, today somebody asked about Sean Washington from the University of Georgia. I don't know if it's Sean. I actually am not all that familiar with with him except from the recruiting process a few years back in 2020 when USC offered and was recruiting him. Somebody asked if I had heard whether he was visiting USC or if there was a chance that he could visit. So, what you do is you hit your sources up, and we got back and said, no, USC's actually not even recruiting him. So that's kind of like where we're at with my approach. My approach is that I want to be the one that is providing as much information as I can possibly gather, especially if it's very important information. Some of the stuff really to me is not all that vital to pass on, whether it's a walk-on is transferring or something like that. But my approach is I want to be able to offer you guys as much as I possibly can first. So that's kind of where we're at. We're now with Marshall Levinson that has joined us. Our recruiting coverage has been kicked up a notch tremendously. Dylan Brazier, who he and I are doing our YouTube channel recruiting show, recruiting recap every week. That's been big. We've had Peyton McMahon, who's been a big, huge help for us. He's up in Edmonton, Alberta. And he's written some great stuff for us, and he's always available to enhance our coverage as well. And then, some stuff will be carried over with Mark Culkin and Greg Katz and Chris Arledge will touch on recruiting a little bit too on their articles and in their shows. But that's just in a nutshell, just to kind of give a little perspective on what my approach is, the method to my madness, and why a lot of people enjoy our site is because we do try and provide information and a perspective that you're just not going to get from a blog. People call us blogs, and it doesn't offend me. I don't even know really like the true definition of what a blog even is, but we're credentialed media at USC, and not many people are. And thanks to Tim Tessalone, he credentialed me when I was an independent site, and it was just me. I was not part of a network. They had criteria at USC that you had to be a part of a bigger network in order to be credentialed media at USC. So I personally will forever thank Tim Tessalone for letting me do that, because there was absolutely no possible way that I could have gotten to where I'm at right now. Being a part of On3, we are SC. Our network is vibrant. We keep adding new talent to this network. It's an exciting time to be doing it because we're separating ourselves not only as a website but as a network from everybody else because of the people that we have a part of our network. And it all stems from our CEO, Shannon Terry, who started Rivals, started 247, and now started On3. And the only thing that I knew prior to joining On3 was that it was going to be really, really good. And the track record speaks for itself. So we're going to continue working our asses off and give you guys the best information that we possibly can, a perspective that maybe not everybody can. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't read anything that's written about USC football, literally anywhere. Stuff trickles down to me, and there's people on the website that will kind of give a brief summary of what's being written, and oftentimes I'll get questions about an article to see if I can confirm stuff and give my point of view on whatever the topic might be. But anyway, we're approaching 14 minutes now. This was going to be like a 4-minute video, but me, I usually just kind of rant on. And so for all of you that are listening that aren't already at wearesc.com, there is an exceptional amount of stuff that we do not give you here at YouTube that you will get on our website. And it's so dirt cheap. It's $29.99 a year right now to subscribe. And then you have access to all of the message boards on our website. So if you want to go check out what's going on